What's up? My name is Josh and I'm your push coach. Thank you so much for joining me in season 2, where I'm going to be joined by an all-new co-host, and we'll even have video versions with tons of behind the scenes and bloopers. You can check that part of the show out over on YouTube or IGTV. A little about me: after making only 2 sales in my entire first year of business, I've gone on to create a multi-million-dollar coaching business, helping people just like you to find confidence, clarity, and become leaders that change the world. I've personally helped 5 different people in 2 different companies to go top 10, and have trained over 40,000 in my online training groups. On this show, you'll get tools and resources that are going to help you to get over your excuses and start recruiting your dream team so that you can go get on your stage. Also, as a free gift, I would love to give you a copy of my best-selling book, F Leadership, totally free. Just go over to joshcoates.com, and I'll even throw in $100 in free instant downloads so you can start leading your team to success today. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Your Push Coach. My name is Josh. I'm your push coach, and we've got another incredible guest today. This is someone that I've known for several years. And when I say known, I mean like, hi, I know you on Instagram kind of know, but we just met for the first time like a couple weeks ago, which was super fun. Got to have some coffee. Well, I had some coffee. You didn't have coffee. I had some coffee. We hung out a little bit. She's absolutely amazing. She's an incredible leader. She has been top 10 in her business, in her company. I think 37 times, something like that. She's an incredible leader. If you follow her on Instagram, you know that she has this huge, just like global reach, which I've always really respected about her. I'm really excited to dive in today. I have Amy Mashburn. How are you, friend?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good. I actually, low-key did not know that you were going by Mashburn. You mentioned that when we met in person. I've still just called you Silverman for like the longest time. So
it's okay. Everybody does. That's like what my brand was built on. And then I decided that I was creating a new identity, and I decided to take my married name.
I love it. So how long have you guys been married?
Wow. 10 years, January.
Oh, wow. 10 years.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe it was because of the name thing. Maybe I didn't know if you guys were like married, life partners. I didn't know like what the situation was, because me and Jenny have been living together for like 3 years, and we just got married like a couple months ago. We actually, so technically we were announced as Joshua and Jennifer Fuller Coates. Neither of us legally changed it, but technically the understood thing is that I took on Fuller Coates and she took on Coates Fuller. So it's like our idea was like, let's take on each other's name, because I don't love the idea that like women have to give up their name and men don't. That's weird to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we honestly, like the paperwork, I'm still not legally Mashburn.
Okay.
I changed it on social media because I was just ready, and we have 2 under 3. It's not a priority to like get the paperwork in. It's literally sitting on the counter.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just like, we have been together 13 years, and we really believe in like being our individual selves and focusing on that.
Right.
And I don't know. We're just not like, we just don't go by what society goes by. I proposed to him. We eloped. Like,
I love it.
It's not important to us, I guess. It's just like people put a lot of importance on that kind of stuff. And it's just for us, it's whatever.
Yeah. Isn't it weird to put such importance on things like that, but then be an entrepreneur, which is like we're like rule breakers. Like that's the point of like, that's why we do this, right?
Yeah. Well, I actually tried to change my name to Mashburn when I was first starting my brand, but I was so new that I got super worried because then all of a sudden nobody knew who I was.
Right.
And I was like, I spent all this time building this thing, and now I'm going to like ruin it. But in hindsight, I should have just kept at it. Yeah. Because everybody would have figured it out. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I changed my name and it didn't change anything on social media. So people call me whatever they want. It's fine.
Right. I dig it. Well, let's dive into some stuff. I want to hear, I kind of want to hear your origins story of like how you got into being an entrepreneur. Like what was it like before you became Amy Silverman / Mashburn via IG? I mean, like, were you already building an IG? Were you doing any of that stuff? Or was that just like take me back?
Honestly, this all just I stumbled into this. I actually was in college for like 8 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I don't even have an associate's. Like I was switching. Yeah, for 8 years, just switching around with art and art focus. So
Okay.
interior design, architecture, photography,
Yeah.
advertising, and then I ended up in multimedia design,
Okay.
wanting to do stop motion animation. And my
Oh,
dream
cool.
was to work for Tim Burton and work on movies. And so I was in school for that, and I've been a waitress since I was 18. I guess you could call that an entrepreneur in the same sense of mine, is that I built my little, my income within somebody else's
Yeah.
umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah.
And would hustle through, restaurant gigs. I did that for 10 years. And I just stumbled upon this wanting to get healthy and lose weight. I had no idea the confidence and the fire that would come out from this
Yeah.
company and come out from this experience. And then I saw there was an income opportunity.
Yeah.
And as like a broke waitress, putting myself through college and putting myself through life since I was like 18, I was 25 when I stumbled upon this, and it just made sense. I was like, well, if I want to lock this into a lifestyle, then I should probably do it as a living, because then it would be, I couldn't, I'm not the kind of person that can show up and do something unless I'm actually doing it.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was perfect accountability for my lifestyle to make it like a side gig. And my only goal was to really just replace waitressing and then continue on with my art endeavors and my passion. I was not a people person. I wanted to work behind computers. I didn't want to talk to people. I had no friends. Like I am an outgoing introvert. So, I could very much like mold to fit the circumstances that I'm in, but I am an introvert and I had very low self-confidence. And so this kind of like pulled this part out of me that I didn't even know existed. And I just got very excited about it. And that's pretty much how I stumbled upon it. Like,
Love it. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance, I can't remember if we talked about this, do you know your Enneagram number?
I am a 7-wing-8.
A 7-wing-8. Explain the 7-wing-8 to me. I would love to hear more. It's hard for me to keep up with all the numbers. So I like to ask people and then be like,
mine.
Tell me everything you've learned about your number. Right. Exactly.
Well, I know that not a lot of people at the top have my Enneagram.
Okay.
And a lot of people are, overachiever Enneagrams don't tend to be a 7-wing-8. I am more of a creative Enneagram, and I like newness all the time. I am definitely somebody who likes adventure and new experiences, and I like to be challenged. And also the 8 is the challenger. So I like to challenge things. In my life, it's been mostly challenging the norm, challenging authority, challenging anything that society, that has been my MO for my whole life, is just to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. And so I think that's why I took to this, because a lot of people saying that like, oh, this is something else, that they don't know what it is. And so the fact that so many people were so emotionally invested in me not doing this because it's XYZ, I think that's what got me excited about it. Like the fact that a lot of people said you can't, and
I dig that.
most people can't, and you won't. I was like, all right, game on. let's see if you're right or not.
I love that so much. And I love like I was thinking about this last night because we had dinner with some friends and we're like chatting about like our different like Enneagram numbers and just like different things. This couple that we like really, really, really admire. And on the drive home, I was kind of just like thinking about this. I was like, it's like if you take all of us, regardless of what our number is, and just give us enough like personal growth and like positivity, like we all kind of meet in the middle somewhere where we can all just kind of like learn from each other's tendencies. Like you might not have the tendency of this other number, but when they're in their growth state, like it's such a cool thing to me to be like, oh, that's like really cool. Like I need to grab onto a piece of that because I'm actually an Enneagram 3. So like I'm a 3-wing 4, which is,
I'm not surprised.
I'm a 3 with a wing 2. Yeah, of course. Right. Like you can meet me in 5 seconds and be like, he's a 3. But here's what's weird about me is the 4 in me is a constant like identity crisis, because the 4 is like the artistic side of me. That's like from playing music all those years. And I'm always like, I want to be accepted. I want to be loved, but I can't do it exactly the way you do it, because then I'll be a copycat. So I have to like find a unique way. It's such a like the inside of me is just like punching itself. Like I want to be loved. Yeah. But I also don't like want to be basic. Like I want to be creative. I want to be creative. Oh, but that's too weird. Like come back over here. It's really funny. But the growth side of us somehow we become, how do any of us even make it as humans? That's what sometimes I wonder that. How do we even make it as humans? Do you have an answer for that?
Well,
I just paused there like, come on, Amy, give me the solution to life.
How do we make it as humans? Well, I think the first thing is to remember that like, I don't want to be an Enneagram 3-2 or a 2-3, and I don't need to be an over those Enneagrams to be successful. I think the key to being human is embracing what you are.
Yeah.
All right, let me turn off my phone noise.
Oh, you're good.
Is to embrace what you are and to go all in with that. And I think that's what has always set me apart in business and my company and on social media, is that I was always that person or coach that was different. And people would see me and be like, who's that? Like, who's that heavily tattooed person around all those like normal looking people? And I think, and that was one of my biggest drivers with this business, was to be able to be my full self. I did not have any tattoos when I started my business. I did not speak the way I speak or feel the way I feel about myself. And I just wanted to really go all in on Amy.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the inner turmoil with people is that they think that somebody else has something special that they don't have. And they're constantly, they're not listening to their own knowing and themselves. And so that creates that turmoil, like you were saying, where you constantly feel like you need to be this or you need to be that because I need to fit in this, or I need people to think that. And I think when we just really stop caring what everybody else is doing or thinking, and we just really go all in on our intuition and our gut and our feelings, and don't silence the noise, that's when we are truly happy.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Can you give me some tips on how you specifically go about listening and finding intuition? Because I do think, like in general, I kind of teach on this in my life coach certification, like in general, the receptors in our head are way louder than like the intuition that lives on the inside. Like, this is always looking for something out here to tell us what to do, where to go, how to process the world, like all this stuff. Like, what are some tips that you have on how to kind of like put all that aside and just be like, who am I?
Well, usually I think it's the first thing that you want to do or you want to say, the first thing that comes to you before your mind takes over. I think that's your intuition. I think it's that gut feeling, like, oh my God, I really want to do this. Or I really, this is what I would really want to say. But then you start thinking, what are they going to think? What about she going to think? And then you start like creating those scenarios in your head. And I think that is like what typically happens. I know you talk about the head and the heart and all that. And it's very much that. It's just that your intuition is like what you need to do. And if more people just went with that guttural instinct, it's like that the parental instinct that you have, like, it's in you. And I think that our minds play tricks on us and like make us think. And I think lockdown was a perfect example of this. I think that so many people were being so brainwashed and influenced by social media that it's almost like we forgot who we are and what really matters and what the real world is like. It was like this like psychological just like mind f for so many people, because it's almost like we took on other people's identities and experiences because we didn't have our own. That's what I experienced, at least. And I think that was a perfect example of a lot of people coming out of lockdown. Like, what is this life? What do I want? Who am I? Am I even like, so I think that, that's a perfect, if you want to like real, if you really want to like think about like a real personal like experience, I think that a lot of people can probably relate to that.
Yeah, I love that. So basically find some good questions to ask yourself about whatever it is we're talking about, right? Like what do I want my business to look like? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my marriage to look like? What do I want everything to look like? And kind of just like learn to go with the first answer that comes versus and that's one of the reasons my morning routine is so powerful to me, because before I look to social media or anything else, or did we actually make any sales, blah 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 blah, it's like I'm going to use that love seat right there, and I'm just going to like turn on some jams, and I'm just going to like go to my happy place where like I'm basically making intentional space to listen to my heart and speak out things that I know are in my heart, so that it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day and makes it easier to like get back. And I think most people they don't do that at all. And
No.
so it's, it's like
Yeah. And I think a
finding
lot of
that is hard.
people, yeah, I think a lot of what we do is just kind of autopilot. And I
Yeah.
think when you're on autopilot,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like you're almost like it's like zombie. You're just kind of like going
Yeah.
through life
Yeah.
unintentionally, and like and that's why I think a lot of people are really unhappy. It's because
Yep.
like they're out of touch with themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my 13-year-old the other day, she was saying, "Dad," she was like, why'd you detail cars for 10 years? That was really stupid. Like, I was like, I didn't. My 13-year-old is like very to the point. She's my little diva, and I was like, that's what I just had to do to pay the bills. Like that's all I knew. I didn't have a degree or anything else, and it paid just enough money that if I tried to go do something else, I was going to make like a lot less, even if I liked it more or whatever.
That's how I felt about waitressing. That's why I did it for 10
Yep,
years. Because it was like,
exactly.
oh, I
Yeah.
could go get a more, like quote unquote respectable job, but I was like,
Yep.
I'd be getting like a 50% pay cut
Yeah,
to do
yeah, because
it.
you'd have to start at the bottom, right? And it'd be
Exactly.
like, oh, okay, cool. And that's what I was trying to explain to her. And she was like, yeah, Dad, but if you hated it and it wasn't any fun, that's just stupid. And I'm like, I'm really, really, really glad that you can see that, because I want you to like think of that in advance as you get older, so you don't get stuck in the same trap I did. But the reality is no one had taught me to think any differently. I literally didn't think there was another option for me. And like looking back, maybe there was some crazy job opening somewhere, someplace. But until I found podcasts and fell in love with life coaching, or the idea of life coaching, I literally didn't think there was any other hope for me other than like praying to God my knee and my back didn't die. I mean, I was getting to that point where I was like, I might be able to do this for like 2 more years, but after that, my body's fucked. Like it's not going any further than that. That's all I got. So, but I do think that like it takes something to interrupt that, right? It takes something to kind of like shake you. So like what was can you think of any like specific moment? Maybe it wasn't a moment, but was there any moment where you like really got shook, where you were like, oh my God, like my life needs to be different?
I think it's when I saw what other people were doing with this.
Mm-hmm.
I just never saw people so happy to
Mm,
like just so happy in general,
yeah.
and like traveling, and like I could not. Kevin and I were talking about this the other day because it's so funny you say that, because Kevin used to work at Circuit City and he
Mm,
used to install car stereos and do
nice.
rewiring and stuff like that when
Yeah.
we met. And I just bought him for his 40th birthday a 1972 Chevy Suburban, like fully
Hell
like
yeah.
so beautiful.
That's
And
awesome.
since he had that job, he knows how to do all the wiring of the things that he
Mm-hmm.
wants to put into the car and all the things that he wants to do. And it's pretty cool because that job like gave him the skills to be able to now like take care of this thing that like
Right. Right.
you wouldn't even think like those things would pay off long term. But you know, for me, I saw people. Oh yeah, and back to what I was saying is that when I got him that car, I was like sitting in the car and he looks at me yesterday and he says, do you remember when like we could not understand how somebody could afford like
Mm.
a new like Honda Fit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you
Yeah.
remember like when we
Yeah.
literally could not wrap our heads around the fact that
Right.
somebody could buy a new car? I'm
Yeah.
gonna cry. And I was just like, no, because I bought this for him cash,
Right.
like,
Right.
and it's we didn't have to trade any other vehicles to do it or anything
Yeah.
like that. And it was just such a full circle moment for me because it was seeing people be able to do stuff like that, like normal everyday people just sharing these success stories and sharing these things that they were achieving. And these are just normal people, like teachers, like I don't know, like salespeople, mom, stay-at-home moms, just like normal everyday people. And I got so much hope from that because if like I don't know, like if I people don't know this, but I'm 13 years sober. And when I first got sober, I went to AA, and it was those stories of people sharing their success with sobriety and what their lives look like and what it looks like now. And so for me, seeing all those stories was it was proof that I could do this too. And that's kind of like when my reality got shook up, because I didn't understand how people could travel. I did not understand how people could have things, houses, how they weren't struggling from negative pay. I just did not understand. I'm like, I do not understand. And so I kind of like flipped my world upside down, because I'm like, okay, there's this whole other way of living that I've never seen before. Nobody's ever talked about. And apparently it's like, like this thing, like people started warning me, like you shouldn't do this. It's a scam. It's a scam. And I was like, people feel very like are really emotionally invested in this thing. And it just really showed me like, okay, there's something here. There's something here that people would care so much about this kind of a like this kind of a way of living your life. And it was just all these like, these just signs and signals that like you can do this. You can do this. And it's the excitement. I think it's also like the excitement I was feeling from doing something I had never done before that was very different and very just, out of the norm, that it really just like made me see like, okay, like I'm just gonna dream big, and I'm gonna do it. And it was the introduction of personal development, which I thought was a bunch of,
bullshit.
I grew up with parents. I listened to Deepak Chopra all growing up, Tony Robbins stacked up in cassettes. My mom still has Tony Robbins cassettes, tapes. My parents all went to personal development seminars. I got sent to a child's personal development seminar when I was like, doing drugs when I was a teenager, like literally like had to go to like a 3-day thing where I had to stand up and share my feelings and shit. So as you can imagine, I was like,
right.
like this shit doesn't work. But, just like with, AA, it works if you work it. Just because somebody's listening to Deepak Chopra or listening to Tony Robbins doesn't mean that they're actually applying or doing any of the things that they're teaching. So I was just like, whatever, I have nothing to lose. And I just went all in with it. And turns out I'm really good at it.
That's so cool. It's funny you mentioned the Circuit City and the like trying to figure out like how people could buy new cars. So this is how poor I was. And not that I was like more poor than you or whatever, but like I have this like memory specifically of my ex's family would like come down like during Thanksgiving time, and we go Black Friday shopping. And I would always get so excited because they were going to go buy a bunch of stuff that like somehow I would get caught up in the moment and think that I was going to buy stuff too.
How old were you
during this time? I mean, this is my whole 20s, like all the way up until 30. And I remember we went to Best Buy, and they had this like 0% credit card that you could get for like Black Friday stuff. And I was like, I remember being like, I think I'm going to go get a new TV. And they were like, oh, really? Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Because they were buying like new TVs and all these different things. I'm just like, yeah, I think I'm going to get a new TV. And they're like, oh, wow, way cool. And I remember them like thinking like, yay, Josh is coming to the party today. Like he's going to have fun with us and spend money. So I walked in there, and this is so embarrassing because a guy that I had used to work with at the place that I detailed cars was there, and he was like the manager of the place. And he was the one that had to run the credit check. Okay. This was for a $200 TV. A, I had to get a credit card to be able to get it. B, I got denied. He came back and he was like, hey, I'm really sorry, man. For whatever reason, they didn't accept you. You didn't. And I remember sitting there being like, I'd already told everyone we were getting a TV. I was so excited. They were all like waiting around to like find out, like, I had to go back and be like, I didn't get accepted for the credit card. And like looking back, I'm like, this was $200 fucking. I couldn't even get credit for $200. So I totally get like the full circle moment of being like, how the fuck do people do? I couldn't even figure out how people bought TVs. Like literally everything in our apartment was like handed down from like our parents or like somebody else we knew. I'd never even had my own mattress like until my business took off. Went and bought the first mattress that we'd ever slept on that wasn't my parents' old mattress, which
I totally get that. Like
kind of
every
weird.
single thing that we get, we're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, can you believe that we can
Right.
afford this?
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. I love that. So, okay, I would love to hear some advice for people that might be like new-ish. Okay. Like going back to your, say, like your first year or two, and even like knowing that you mentor, hundreds of women, obviously thousands over the years, but like you work with a lot of new people, right? Like what is looking at the beginning of your journey, and let's maybe compare it to the beginning of other people's journeys. What do you see as like maybe a differentiator, if that's a word, between the way you handled your first year versus maybe like the common mistakes that you see other people making in their first year?
Well, I mean, I didn't come out the gate in my business because I was working full time and going to school full
Mm-hmm.
time. But I definitely, from the very beginning, I set hours and started treating. I got very, very strict with my time management.
Yeah.
And that's something that I definitely don't see a lot of new people doing is taking
Yeah.
this seriously to the point where they sit down, they Google Calendar their weeks out,
Right.
they set their work hours like around their, their
Mm-hmm.
job, and then their entrepreneur business. I had everything scheduled from the time I woke up to the
Yeah.
time I went to bed, including like walk your dog, spend
Mm-hmm.
time with Kevin,
Right.
prep for tomorrow. Like I had everything so that when the timer went off, I knew to move to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that I was just like, okay, time's up. So that when I did work, even though
Mm-hmm.
I only had the time to work like 15 hours a week my first year at my business, I was very intentional because I literally had no other time.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I didn't really maximize that
Right.
time, I didn't have any other time
Yep.
because I had homework. I had to go to work. I
Yeah.
commuted. I took public transportation. I had schedules. I had to, and I almost feel like when you work, if you're a stay-at-home mom or you have a business
Mm-hmm.
at home where you're home, it's almost harder because you can like maybe sleep in a little bit or
Mm-hmm.
kind of like fart around the house a little bit before you get your workout in. But when you have to work out because you
Mm-hmm.
have to be on the train and you have to be at work at a certain time,
Yeah.
you're going you're moving. Second
Yeah.
your feet hit the floor, you're going, and you're not stopping until you go to sleep,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's the time management piece. I think that's the part where people don't take the time up front to sit down and
Yep.
really become owners of their time.
Right.
And your time is the most important thing that you have, and it's
Yeah.
not a renewable resource. And so that is like one of the good things I did my first year. One of the bad things I did my first year is I didn't focus on team building, and I didn't focus on building a team. And I was like very, very sales driven because I
Mm-hmm.
was really focused on like the helping people part
Yeah.
and having fun with like my social media and like
Mm-hmm.
connecting people to the products because I was so passionate about the products
Yeah.
and not necessarily like the business. Even though I
Right.
did want to be successful in the business, there was like
Yeah.
this disconnect
Yeah.
where I just didn't see why I should grow a team.
Right.
So I think, it's important to know that like to try to really find that
Mm-hmm.
reasoning to really start people on the business in
Yeah.
your first 2 years right out the gate, because there are people that joined and started around the time I did
Yep.
who now have teams. Like the number one earner in the company, for example, she
Mm-hmm.
started 6 months before I did.
Mm.
What's different between her organization and my
Mm-hmm.
organization? She focused on team building from the very beginning.
Right.
And of course, she's a different Enneagram. I fly by the seat of my pants. I'm not comparing myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love my journey. I love my business. I don't need to be making all that money. But the point
Yeah.
I'm trying to make is that there is a difference in, somebody's business who goes straight into the team building aspect, and
Right.
then somebody who really focuses on,
Yeah.
more like the sales. Sorry about
Yeah.
I
Oh,
forgot
it's
to
fine.
take the
It's fine.
dog out of the room.
It's all good.
It's not my toenails, you guys. It's my dogs. But it's, I do think that that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is that they don't really go all in with the team building. And there is that, limiting belief there, I think, for a lot of people, that was there for myself as well.
I love that you said that because I do think, I mean, I've made a lot of money off of teaching recruiting, because everyone tends to have struggle with that transition of like, oh my God, I love my products. They're the best thing in the world. Okay, why don't you talk about the business? Well, that's weird. It's gross. It's like, so can you give some tips on how to get over that mindset of feeling like talking about the business is somehow this weird, awkward, gross, salesy, sleazy thing?
Well, I think every company is different. I know that mine, the company I partnered with is the only company I'd ever be partnered with. If, I wouldn't be doing network marketing if it wasn't for Beachbody and the lifestyle. And so I think it's almost easier in the sense where people create these physiological transformations with the products that gets them, very much in love with it. And so I think for my specific industry, it's really about encouraging people to see that they can be leaders. I think a lot of people usually stop at the results, and I think it's really the encouragement. Like for me, my coach constantly told me, you'd be such a great coach, you'd be such a great. So I think a lot of it is really encouragement of the people who are already using the products. I don't know, again, like other products, I don't know how emotionally invested I can get in some other things that are being sold out there. But like for me, it's great because I can really share the lifestyle. I can really share physical results. I can really share emotionally and physically, like how these products and this company changes my life. And so I think on social media, just really getting good about sharing your story and not necessarily talking about money and all those things, because my industry, like, I don't believe that people who come in straight to like just make money and have like a job, like a sales job, I just don't see that much success, because I don't believe that, I mean, there's some people who come in straight for the business, but I really believe that when you're being really good about sharing this business as a lifestyle, I think that's when people can see themselves doing it. But also, like, don't be afraid to share how amazing you are and how successful you are and what a hard worker you are, and how much you love working hard. I think there is this stigma that's been created recently, especially for women, where it's like you shouldn't want to work hard, and there's this burnout stigma, and like there's this belief that's circling around that like you can't be successful and be happy. You can't work hard and love what you do and love your life. Like there are these like all of these stories that are being like created, and just like and people are believing them, and it's not true. It's not true. Like you can love what you do, work your butt off, and freaking love every minute of it,
Yeah. And I mean, like, so I talk about this a lot, Amy, because I feel like there's definitely a handful of people, probably more that I don't know about from even your specific company, that got burned out. And I always like make the joke that they left for a 9-year yoga retreat and we never saw them again. We're just like, where the fuck did they go? Like, what's happening with these people? And because of the extreme of a couple people, then comes this new message of like, oh, like, don't work hard, it's gonna like ruin you. And it's like, it's not that, like, that could be the extreme of anything. Like if you don't work hard enough, you'll never be able to pay your bills. Like any extreme you decide to go in is going to get you screwed in life. It's all about, like, I teach heart, hustle, harmony. It's all about like this harmony aspect of, yes, I work really hard because I want to get things in life, but that doesn't mean I have to work from the second I wake up till the second I go to bed. It means I work hard at everything that I do. I work hard at my relationships. I work hard at anything. I work hard at playing. I like love to play. And when I say play, I mean going to local coffee shops, eating local food, probably spending like half of the money I make on local food and coffee, because that's what I love to do, right? But I do it. I work really hard at that because I enjoy it. And I think that people just like need to like realize, and I know you're a health and fitness coach. I use the body as an analogy all the time. I'm like, I just dare you to never, ever, ever change any of your eating habits or any of your like physical exercise habits, but then expect to like get in better shape. It's it's not going to work. Like, I don't care what kind of fucking science you find. Like, I believe in meditation and I believe in manifestation, but that's like the underground work to set you up for the shit that you actually end up doing with your hands, your feet, your voice, like whatever. And I think that just like this idea of manifestation is kind of, in my opinion, getting perverted to where it's like sit and meditate and then like good shit happens that you never worked for. And that, to me, that sounds like a scam. That sounds more.
Manifestation is supposed to motivate you to work hard. I manifested this exact house that I live in right now, all during lockdown. I worked hard thinking about exactly what I wanted to build and what would get me. I was pregnant. I was postpartum. I was on lockdown. I was going through some serious shit. And my mind took me away from that. You know, it was the power of my mind. And to have what I have today, just a year later, is testament to that. And the thing is that when somebody goes off and blames this and blames that, and this is why, and this is why, and blame, it's because they don't want to take personal responsibility for their shortcomings. They don't want to take personal responsibility for what they did and didn't do. And, you know, I even had somebody come at me once because I don't share my children on social media. And she literally came at me and was like, I was told I have to share my children on social media. How dare you think you can't show your children on social media?
What?
So this person went against her own ethos, shared her children, even though she didn't want to, and then blamed the company, the upline, me, all these people, because she didn't listen to her knowing. She didn't listen to herself. And I think that happens so often where a lot of people are like, they do something because out of the they're so desperate for success that they don't listen to themselves. And then they get angry and they blame and blame and blame. And so I could have done this over the 10 years that I've been doing this. I mean, I was in the top 10 for 7 years without burnout. We're number 11 right now, and I have 2 under 3. And I feel great, and I'm not burnt out, and I'm freaking crushing it. And so I'm crushing mom life too, which is my number one. I'm an overachiever of being a mom, and I'm loving life, and it's because I work really hard at loving life too. You know, I work really hard at my hobbies. I work really hard at my business. I work really hard on my marriage. Hard work in all areas of your life is the wheel of life. I mean, you can't just work hard on one thing and expect everything to get better. You know, it's again, it's that story that you create that if I have this, I will then feel this way. And that is nobody's fault, not even the person's fault who felt that way. It's just that it's almost that escapism of like, well, when I have this, I'll have that. When I have this, I'll feel this way. And I think if anything, the best thing that we can learn from people who have those experiences and then go on to, you know, create doubt and blame for other people is that we don't want to do what they did. They are great models for what you do not want to do, not great models to listen to what you should do. They're like, you know, they're almost like warning beacons. Like, okay, it's not the business. It's not the company. It's not the products. It's not the movement. It's not social media. It's the person. Like, don't let other people's experiences get in the way of creating your own.
I can't drop this mic because it's my really good podcast mic, but I really want to drop it right now. Just the whole stand and everything. I think it like put a hole in the floor.
It just frustrates me when people let other people's experiences stop them from having their own. Like, have your own experience. If you like, you think like something about something, show it, prove it to yourself, you know, like go all in with something, see how it is for you, you know. But I just, you know, if I had listened to people about everything in my life, AA is a cult, CrossFit's a cult, Beachbody's a cult, social media is a cult, you know, everything that I've ever done, it's like, if it's positive, don't do that because you might be happy. Watch out. You know, it's like, okay, so the worst thing that could happen is that like something really good happens and I might have a weird experience, but I mean, at least I tried.
I think I just had like a thought that I don't know if I've ever had before, as you were saying that thing about the cult. I think the reason we're so afraid of cults is because we don't know how to listen to our own heart. And we're afraid that if we jump in, we don't know how to navigate finding ourselves within it, which is, I feel like, has been a big theme of what we're talking about today. You're like, yo, I joined this company, but like I listen to my own heart. I do my own thing. I march to the beat of my own drum. And I do think that sometimes we know how much we are influenced and affected by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is like understanding the way my subconscious mind works. That just means I need to make sure that whatever people I surround myself with are the kind of people I want to eventually be like.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
If
mean
it
I have to
feels
be a
icky,
clone of them, but
yeah.
I need to get around like people that have the things that I want to have. And I don't just mean cars and houses. I mean happiness, healthy relationships, good things in life. I will not spend my time with people who have nice cars and houses that are assholes. I refuse to, like, because I don't want to get that idea like in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, it's all about freedom and lifestyle. And if we have a lot of money, that's like a bonus, but that's for the experiences, not for like status kind of stuff. So I will like literally avoid those circles altogether. I won't play golf. I know it sounds weird, but I refuse to play golf. I'm against golf because I don't want to turn into the guy that's like,
you should be against golf because of what the grass and all the pesticides do to the.
well, that too. It's just, for me, I'm like completely against anything that makes me feel like some type of like an elite status or like something like that. But anyways, that's
you're not going to hang out with people who go and party at a club if you're into camping and, freaking hanging out in nature. Like, I'm not going to hang out with girls who have to blow dry their hair every morning, because I would rather just wake up in a tent and, live my damn life. Like, you surround yourself around people who are like you and have your same like ideals, and
right.
and if it feels icky, then listen to that. Like, when I was new, I did try to do what everybody else was doing. I was the, doing the X thing and the flexing my arms and like all the cheesy shit. And I was like, this is so lame. What am I doing?
Right.
And so I deleted everything that went against who I am. And that's when my brand started to build, because I decided that I was going to curse. I decided that I was going to share like my story, my sobriety, all of the real things about me. And nobody was doing that at the time. And I just decided I was going to go all in with being vulnerable and being myself, and people freaking loved it. And that's why I've never had to send a cold invite in my whole career, because I started from the very beginning just being real. And people gravitated towards that because people don't want the shiny cars and the fancy houses and the fancy shoes. They want like real life, tangible things that can change their lives. And so that's what I've always focused on. And I think that's also the focus on those luxury items and things that does disenfranchise people, because it's not what makes people happy. And so there's those stories of people who, I made all the money, and I bought the cars, and I did the things because I wanted to, advertise this lifestyle, not because I actually wanted this lifestyle. Again, they went against what they knew they should do because they felt pressured to do that. And if there's one thing that I've loved about myself, is that besides drugs and alcohol, I have never succumbed to peer pressure of society. I learned that lesson. I almost died. So I learned that lesson early. And I think that it's a very important lesson that, like, society doesn't dictate what makes you happy, and that you should really focus on what you really want. And I think a lot of people could have a lot of happiness if they just paid off their debt and lived humbly and gardened and hiked and spent a lot of time with their family and weren't working a 9 to 5 that made them miserable because they're making 6 figures. It's like, I really do believe, even though I do make a lot more than that, I do think that, like, even if it all went away, I would still be super happy with my life, because now I know what's important to me.
Yeah, totally. And I think that anyone who, I shouldn't say anyone, but I think that most of us that have created enough success, we really were, like, looking back, I was miserable because of my financial situation, but I was a really happy person. I mean, I was so fucking stoked to wake up every single day and do something I loved. For my whole 20s, that was music. I hated detailing cars, but I couldn't wait for the weekend to come around where we're going to play shows or like whatever. Like I was a very happy person. Money didn't like make me happy. It just took away the extra stress that came along with not being able to pay bills. Right. Like, which is, I always like compare it to, if you have a night away from the kids and the kids are like with the sitter and it's just like you and your husband or like me and my wife. And it's like for tonight, there's like no kids and out of nowhere. Right. Yes.
I don't have one of those.
You need to get one of those. But like for that night, you're just like, huh, I just like don't have that extra thing to think about. Like there's not, I don't have to, like I'm eating my food without thinking about who needs their food cut up or who spilt it on someone else, or my 16-year-old making an inappropriate joke way too loud in the red, like all of these things that are moving through our brain. And I always compare like having money to like basically the equivalent of losing, because otherwise they're just like all of this, like how are we going to pay for this, how are we going to do that, oh they want to go out to eat, well we can't afford to go out to eat, this is going to be awkward, like just all of the conversations that happened in my head all fucking day thinking about money, just like all of a sudden we're gone.
I know. And it's mind-blowing when you have actually experienced it and you don't realize, you look back and you're like, man, I obsessed over money.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that, like, and I don't want to be listening to this to think like, oh, it's easy for you to say that because, but it's like, you have to remember that we've been there, and it's important to remember that like we have had that experience, and it's not necessarily about like making millions, and I think that's where people like lose grasp of reality. It's like, what if you could just pay all of your bills? What if all of your bills were just on auto pay?
Yeah.
Like how much stress could that take out of your life, and mental bandwidth that you could focus on something else? Those things that like my team, like I don't necessarily have like, people who are like pushing to like duplicate what I've done. They're looking to duplicate my lifestyle. So like big wins are like paying off debt, putting your bills on auto pay, being able to afford a new vehicle, like those things. That's how I started, and I think those are the things that a lot of people would be very happy with, very happy.
Absolutely.
But then then you taste a little bit of the success, and that's when it gets spun out of control, because then you want more and more and more and more. And I think it's really about like really bringing it, like constantly fighting that ego to stay humble, which has been like our whole thing is like, do we want the big house? No, we just bought a 1,700 square foot bungalow. But what do we value? We value land. We value nature. So we chose land over a big giant house. We could have afforded a big thing that I could post on social media and be like, look at my giant kitchen and like, look how amazing I am. But no, that's not what I value. And that's not what I would actually love in my life. And I think it's that people, I think that I've been there too. I've been there, and I have thought that I need the fancy things. Like we were just about to buy a brand new fancy car, and instead I was like, let's buy a classic freaking Suburban. Because like, who cares about the freaking classy, like we drive like, pretty humble cars, I think. And like, it's just about what's fun for us, and when you can actually have that freedom to just do whatever the fuck you want to do, and you don't have to like stress about it, like that is freaking priceless. And I wish more people would just believe that they could do that, and just stay really focused on themselves.
So why doesn't everybody like take a minute, pause this podcast, turn on some music, and ask yourself, like, what's 2 or 3 things you like actually want in life that would make your life for you and for your family like more enjoyable on more of an experience level? And it doesn't matter, like your experience doesn't need to be like Amy's. You don't have to want to live in the woods and raise chickens, like whatever that is, like I mentioned earlier, me and my wife, like we eat local food. Like that's our thing. So this is Thursday. It's date night. We're going to go downtown to one of our favorite spots, either Tacos and Mezcal, which is this like amazing local taco place, or Boston Title and Abstract, which is like this underground speakeasy. The dude that owns it is like younger than me, and he like designed the whole thing underground himself. And we just like, we love to go just be a part of like local culture and people that are doing cool shit. Doesn't like, maybe for some of you, you're like, honestly, I just want to make a Target run once a week and like fill my cart with shit that I maybe don't need, but like it feels good to be able to do something for myself instead of buying for, it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't have to line up with my values or Amy values. It's your fucking values because it's your life. Right. So like figure out what would really feel amazing to you and your family. Okay. Maybe that's the no debt thing. Maybe that's the now we buy organic food thing. Whatever the fuck it is, that like this is your life, right? Just like write that shit down. Start imagining that every single morning and using that as your motivation to go do the work that you need to do. Like just start with that. Okay. Hit pause, hit timeout, and then come back because Amy's going to give us a last tip before. But seriously, hit pause like right now and do this exercise.
And I like food too. I mean, Kevin and I, you know, we were foodies before kids, and now we're foodies at home. Like
Okay.
it's you know, we spent all of our money on going out to eat. You know, I lived in San Francisco. I was in the food industry. I worked for celebrity chefs. That's how we did before kids. And it's like, it's another thing to think about is seasons, you know? And I think that's another thing that I had going for me is that through people who were older than me, their experiences, I saw how life doesn't stay the same and it changes. And natural disasters, I was in natural disaster growing up and it changed everything, and divorce and bankruptcy, and the amazing life I had completely changed to a different life. And so that life experience, you know, really led me to remember that like I need to build something that will grow with me through all my seasons. And so we didn't have kids for the first 8 years of my business. So we traveled the world, we ate good food all over the world. Like it's gonna sound so snobby, but we got to the point where we would only eat pasta in Italy because we literally could not.
No, that doesn't sound snobby at all. Not
so
at all.
Snobby. But going from two people who literally could not afford a passport or and could not afford to even leave work for 2 days, like that is an example of how much, you know, your life can change when you go all in on your dreams. And that season is no longer here. Now we're home full time with our kids. We don't want to have a nanny. We don't want to have a babysitter. My husband's a stay-at-home dad, and we have a different sort of life now. And if that's the last tip that I could give, it's just like really also think about like the seasons of your life. And you know, we never thought we wanted kids, but because we have this amazing business, it showed us that like we actually do want kids. And because I do have a business that I can control and I work from home and I can just move around my schedule and I can change it for the change of seasons, it's like really think about your seasons in life. What about when you're 60, 70, 80, you want to retire? What does that look like? Are you building something? I was, you know, recently able to retire my mom and pay for my mom full time to live. So like, what about your parents? Like, what about your kids? Like, I think when your why and your vision becomes so much bigger beyond your bills, you know, it becomes something that you just can't not do. It's like, it just pulls you in the direction of like, I just literally have to do what I do because it's not just about me. It's about the people that I love and care about. And it's also about the people who join me and who they love and care about. It's just so much bigger than me. And it just doesn't become, it's like non-negotiable at that point.
Yeah. And what a crazy thing to think about. Like, I think I love that you mentioned the people that are connected to us, the people that we as leaders are responsible for. I mean, like I feel, and I know that you definitely feel this too. Like I feel like a serious responsibility for anyone who claims me as their mentor, whether they just listen to the podcast or just read my book or a paid client. Like it doesn't matter. Like I feel this responsibility. Like I have to find a way to dissect everything I can possibly learn about success, about my journey, about other people's, and like spoon feed this to you in a way that like gives you a chance to like go duplicate what we have done. And it's like, I think if you're listening to this, I think it's real easy to maybe be like, well, I don't have a downline of like 50,000 like Amy. I don't have a top podcast like Josh. It doesn't matter if you're connected to like one person that's your client or on your team or whatever. Like, don't forget the power of her life being completely changed forever. and all the people she's connected to, like her parents and her brothers and sisters and her kids. And it is just like this huge ripple effect that happens from every single one of us. And I think too many times we undervalue the effect we have on the world because maybe we don't have the big business yet. But the reality, like I've always taught people, if you want to have a big business and help a ton of people, you really have to like embrace the few people that you have like right now. Because if you won't do that, why the hell would other people join you? Like, why would 20 people join you if you don't make it a point to make an impact on 5 people? Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And also to remember that, like, you know, I don't know. I think it's definitely an integrity issue when people are like, oh, join me, and then they quit. And then, they do something else and then they quit. It's like, it just destroys that trust. And if you're working on rebuilding that trust right now, or you want to build that trust within yourself, that integrity piece is remembering that you are talking to a stadium of people, whether or not you think you are or not. You need to show up, and your posture needs to be as if you do have a team of thousands before you have a team of thousands. If you want people to follow you, you have to be a leader. And in order to be a leader, you need to show up in a way that makes people feel like they can be a part of what you're a part of. And like you said, like I've always felt like I was changing the world, even when nobody was liking my posts and nobody was following me. I didn't start my Instagram till I was already full-time doing this. And so, and my likes were like 1-2 likes per post, but I was just like, didn't care. Like, I just was like, yes, like I've always celebrated all the small wins, because if you look back over time, you can see the evolution of your business and your brand and what you're growing. But if you don't stay consistent, like you will never see that. So I don't know, like you have to believe that people are there before they're there.
Right. I love that. Amy, thank you for being on. I appreciate it so much. Where can people find you?
So my Instagram is Amy Mashburn Wellness. That's where I'm most active. My email is amy@amysilvermanfitness.com. I'm still a Silverman over there. So it's very confusing for people. I'll get it together eventually, but Amy Mashburn Wellness, and my Facebook is Amy Mashburn. You can find me at any of those places. And I hope that, with, connecting with me, you can see that like, you don't have to be perfect. You just need to get it done and have fun on your way while you're doing it. That's my whole thing.
I love it. Thank you again so much, Amy. To everyone listening, appreciate you so fucking much. Please remember that everything you need is already living on the inside. All of the resources you'll ever need are right under your nose. Go do something amazing today. Go be amazing. Change the world around you. And that always starts with you. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Let me encourage you to remember that leadership is all about duplication. So make sure you share this episode with your team and friends. Also, make sure you tag me over on your stories wherever you're listening to the show, and I'll share some of my very favorites to my stories. And I'm going to give away a $50 Amazon card every single week to my very favorite one. Thanks again for listening. Remember, you are worthy of everything you want. You are capable of everything you want. You have infinite creativity and wisdom and life and love living on the inside of you. So go be a light today. Shine, get what you want, and help others to do the same.